Shalom everyone, it's Kol Torah, Tuesday at noon, and I really would like to dedicate this Kol Torah to Ilui Neshama, to the elevation of the soul of Golda Bat Natan, that's Jason's grandmother, and we really sending our condolences and nichumim to the family of Becky Lefkowitz and Nathan Gold as well from New York, and may Hashem will comfort them among all the mourners of Zion and Jerusalem. In this parasha, Parashat Mishpatim, talks about the laws and the commandments that Hashem handed to Moshe to basically to deliver it and to convey it, to transmit it, to teach it to the Jewish people. And it's very interesting to note that the first commandment that the Torah decided to present to the Jewish people is the concept of Eved Ivri, a Jewish servant. And I would like to understand, why is that the first commandment that the Jewish people were commanded? Especially when you see last week's Torah portion talking about the 10 Commandments, this unbelievable, uplifting, spiritual event, the revelation at Sinai that created the uniqueness and the specialness of the Jewish people. Unlike any other nation, we heard, all of us heard God's voice. We saw the appearance of God in our midst. So the first commandment that the Jewish people are commanded after this uplifting experience is what? Hebrew slave. How common is it? The Talmud talks about 2 ways that you can become a Hebrew slave. If you steal money and you don't have the money to pay back, so you are going to be sold by the court, how common is that going to be? Or if you're really, really poor, really destitute, then you can sell yourself. But we know that Jewish family service is not an invention of the only modern society. Jews all over the centuries try to take care of each other, try to help each other. We know we have mitzvah tzedakah, giving what we call charity and helping the needy. So how common is that going to be, that someone going to be so poor and so needed that he is going to find himself with no friends and will need to sell himself to be a slave? It's almost impossible. So why is that the Torah decided that the first commandment after the 10 Commandments is about slavery, especially Jewish slavery? So I would like to present to you with 2 suggestions, 2 ideas, 2 concepts that maybe can give us somewhat of an answer. The first one is that, as we know, the first commandment in the 10 Commandments is Anochi Hashem Elokecha asher hotzeiticha me'eretz Mitzrayim mibeit avadim. I am Hashem your God, who took you out from the land of Egypt, from the house of slavery. Talking about the house of slavery, about avadim, about slaves and servants. The first commandment that corresponds to the first commandment in the 10 Commandments will be the concept of the Eved Ivri, of the Hebrew or the Israelite servant. Meaning, in order to create a link between the first commandment in the 10 Commandments and our Parashat Mishpatim, the common denominator, the common link, the common thread is what? Slavery. Therefore, the Torah, in terms of logic, in terms of technicality, presents us with the concept of the Hebrew slave. Meaning, when I am Hashem your God who took you out from the land of Egypt, from the house of slavery, I can also tell you that if you become a slave, meaning if you, a Jew, become a slave, this is how you treat a slave, because I am Hashem your God, the first commandment. I will call this suggestion more of a technical one, more of a, I can consider it a logical answer that tries to connect the dots, to connect the first commandment of the 10 Commandments and the beginning of our Parsha. But I think there is much more than that. As I mentioned before, there are 2 ways to become a Hebrew slave. One, to be a thief, to steal something that does not belong to you and not be able to pay it back. And the second one is to really be poor and destitute. To really a level that there is no one there to help you. You are all alone, all by yourself. So the only way to get away from this loneliness and this almost unbearable situation is to sell yourself. The common denominator between these two situations is that you are obviously not the most popular guy in society. You are not a CEO of a company. You are not wealthy. You're probably not so smart. Not the popular guy that everyone would like to invite for a Friday night dinner. And there is a tendency that those people who are in this situation will be forgotten. People don't pay attention to those poor people. People don't really care for those who are not the popular people. If you didn't make it, who are you that I will think about you? So the Torah tells us, after this uplifting experience, this elevation, this spiritual experience of the revelation at Sinai, when we all feel so proud of ourselves and so up there, the Torah says, look, don't forget the destitute people. Don't forget those poor people that have nothing. Specifically, those ones need to be on your first priority to take care of them and to treat them right and properly. If you want to get meaning to the 10 Commandments, if you really want to feel this spiritual experience again and to revive those feelings inside you, don't chuckle all day in the Beis Midrash. Treat those people who are, for whatever reason, are not so fortunate like you, and bring them into your house. Invite them. Pay attention to them. This is the way to fulfill the 10 Commandments. It's not about you. It's about them. And this is where the link comes into reality. The 10 Commandments on one hand, and the poor people, the destitute people, the people who are maybe not so popular. If you want to connect the dots, you need to know how to treat those people. And therefore, the Torah starts the chapter of laws with how you treat your Israelite servant. How do you bring him into your family? How do you build him up? How do you build his reputation? How do you give him the strength, the inner strength to believe in himself by you believing in him? We will talk again next week.